Hello, welcome to Waypoint Survival. Today, we're going to talk about what's in the Hobo Bindle. Stay tuned. It's quite a rainy day today, so I've taken shelter in the woodshed. The homeowner has graciously allowed me to film here. And so I'm going to open up this bindle and I'm going to show you what I carry. First of all, you will notice that the bindle is attached to the stick with a simple wire hook and just placed in a notch here in the stick. And I've had other notches for perhaps other purposes, such as cooking over a fire. But this works really good, just made from an old coat hanger. Next, we have a standard handkerchief, simply tied up with 2 knots, and then the hook just fits underneath these very simply, so that it makes a complete bundle, or bindle as it is, for carrying. Now we can access the bindle from these open areas without ever untying the knots, unless we need to use this for a washcloth or for some other purpose. But as it is, of course, we know that it's multi-purpose. First thing that I like to carry in the bindle is a simple canvas sack. It's wax canvas with a drawstring. This has multiple uses. Of course, you can use this for gathering food. It will also hold water, and that's a really nice addition to have. Now, many of the items that I have in here are based on historical research of what a hobo might have carried during the classic era of the hobo, which started shortly after the American Civil War in the 1860s and 1870s, and then on through the 1930s to 1950s, sort of the classic age of the hobo. Most modern hobos today use full backpacks, and they have all kinds of modern camping gear with them. But this is sort of based on the classic hobo bindle. Not all hobos carried these. Sometimes they used pillowcases. Actually, they used whatever they could find. But this is sort of the classic caricature of a hobo and what he would carry. And so I've tried to mimic that as best I can. All right, next, down in the bottom here, we have this Old Boy Scout knife. You've seen me use this on multiple videos. This is a great blade, and of course is used for making projects. We do not carry this on the belt because, again, going in and out of towns, we don't want to create any kind of a stir, so we keep this safely tucked away unless we're out and about camp, and then this goes on the belt. Next is a simple flathead screwdriver, and this is useful for all kinds of prying tasks as well as punching holes, and there's a lot of things that you need a flathead screwdriver for when you're out and about. We also have the classic can opener church key. Many of you are familiar with this, as I've used this on multiple videos to make tin can stoves, so this is very handy. The next item that we carry in the bindle is an old pair of pliers. These are slip joint pliers, so larger or smaller size depending on what you need to use. This is really good for bringing hot pots off the fire or for holding cord to pull a tight knot. It's just useful for a variety of projects, so that's really handy. And one end of this has been ground down and shaped into, see it's a little longer, it's been shaped into another flathead screwdriver, which can also be used as something to pry open a can with, such as an old paint can or something if you need to use that for a project. Next, we have our pair of Fiskars Snips. Now, this is not a classic style. I do have some older ones, but I like the needle nose on these, so were I to be a hobo, I would try to get something similar to this, and you've seen me use this on a lot of projects. Next, we have the classic can opener. Of course, this is useful for a variety of things, but for opening cans and making projects, we can use this for any of that. Of course, we also have our Sharpie. This is actually made by Milwaukee, and so it's just a permanent marking pen, and this is, of course, to mark out cans when we need to make projects. Next, we have a little tobacco tin, and inside this are some UST Strike Anywhere matches, and this has a waterproof seal on it. Makes just a nice little tin. I also have in this old cloves tin, which of course we can use the screwdriver to open. But inside of here I have coffee beans. And if you've seen my video on how I make hobo coffee, then you will have seen this in use. But that's keep my coffee beans nice and dry and keep them fresh, because powdered coffee can be difficult to carry when you're out and about. Next item I have in here is my pocket survival kit. And of course, I've done a video on this already, so I would encourage you to go and check that out. But this has a very complete little survival kit in it based on what people would carry back in the old days. And so this is a nice thing if you're going into town and you want to leave most of your stuff back at the hobo jungle. You would slip this in your pocket. And of course, nobody would think much about having a tin like this, because it was very common back in the day. But inside of here are a number of items, as I've already showcased, that would help me get through not only on the road, but also at the hobo jungle. Down at the very bottom, we have a good hank of bank line. So there's about 50 feet of bank line here, I believe. Next, in the bindle, we have just a simple plastic shopping bag. And this we can use to tie around the whole bindle in case we get out into rainy weather. And this will protect all of our gear. And the last item in here is fairly large. So this is, of course, now empty. But what we have is a tin cup with measurements on here. So for making bread and floury items, whatever we need, if we need to make a measurement. But this is for drinking coffee, for making our coffee in around the camp. We also, of course, have a large, just simple tablespoon. Bought at a second-hand store. You can get these for a quarter sometimes. Also, we have a toothbrush. And the toothbrush is, of course, to keep the teeth clean. We want to be presentable when we go into town. Next, we have a large 16-penny nail. This is very useful for making projects. And if you know anything about the classic days of the hobo, they would take and smash this end out, this point, and then they would take a nickel and they would very carefully re-etch the nickel and put all kinds of different pictures and things that would scratch into it. And of course, buffalo nickels usually, they were worth a nickel, but if you had nice artwork on it, you could often go to a restaurant and trade it for a meal which was worth a quarter. So you could turn a nickel into a quarter by sitting under a bridge and very carefully scratching off that cupro nickel, 75% nickel, 25% copper, and you would be able to scratch that in and make it work for you. Next, we have our Honer Pocket Pal harmonica, and inside the lid we have a razor blade. This is just a simple razor blade for a safety razor, and often the razor frame would be left at the hobo jungle, and so all you'd have to carry is just the blade. When you got there, there'd be a bit of a mirror and you could shave before going into town. Of course, classic harmonica, which I do play. Tin cup, extra pair of socks. Really great for sleeping, keep yourself warm at night. Also doubles as a pair of gloves, or if you need a pot handle to pull something off the fire. Of course, a hobo also carry things in his pockets, such as this Master Barlow blade. It's a single blade. He would also carry some sort of a lighter. This, of course, is a Bic lighter, but they would have carried many other things back in the day, including Zippos and trench lighters. And then he might also carry a pocket comb, which is something that he could use for combing his hair or his beard when he would go into town and look for work. Of course, he would only carry this generally for his hair. If he wanted to be clean shaven, of course, then he would not use this for his beard. So here it is, the classic Hobo Bindle, based on some historical research that I have done. And note that most hobos were not homeless, nor were they vagrants or tramps or bums. They were traveling working men who worked all over the railroads, built a lot of the dams in the United States, and spent a lot of time traveling the rails. They would often leave their families to go earn money in other places. So a lot of times they've been mistaken in a modern sense for bums and tramps, but they really hated that name. As a matter of fact, they had regular hobo meetings, which they still do every year, and they had a code of ethics, and they were very particular about how they treated people, women, and children, had rules against drunkenness, and all of the other things. It would be a really great thing to read if you ever get the chance to look that up on the internet. This is James Bender for Waypoint Survival. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, make sure and check out the links in the description box below, just under the More button. And while you're down there, you'll also find our waypointsurvival.com link. And this is where you can sign up to take great survival and bushcraft training classes here at our facility in Southern Ohio. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. We'd really appreciate it. And when you do subscribe, make sure and press that bell button so that you can stay notified of all of our upcoming videos, and we'll talk to you next time.